Hmm. Hmm. I think we're live. It does seem that way. If I make the chat really small so that I can see what YouTube is doing. If I go over a little bit, it does show me. That's good. We are here. We have survived the travesty that is opening up OBS and trying to start a live stream. I think we're just gonna vibe for a bit. I think we're on time. Absolutely on time, which is kind of neat. It's kind of rare to be on time, I think. Yeah. But I suppose we're gonna get into it. Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP. Hang on. Did I set? Why am I doubting myself? Why am I doubting myself? Let me just open up an Opera window. Good timing. Sup, Andres. Welcome. Sup, Jacob. How you doing? You guys having a good week so far? Just realized that, yeah. No, we did mention it. There is a notification. That's good. Yeah. Did I say there was going to be no stream this week? I apologize if that was the case. I think I mentioned that there wasn't going to be a Sunday live stream this week. So here in New Zealand, it's Saturday. And last week I did 2 live streams. I won't be streaming tomorrow because I have to do a few things around the house. But we're here today to listen to some music. If we switch over to here, I actually know Sup Shredders. My name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Livestreams today where we're doing requests, song requests. It is number 46 of these today. If we switch over to here, we have ourselves on Spotify. We have the chat down here. For those who are unfamiliar, basically we listen through a song of your choice under 5 minutes. If you send one through over 5 minutes, we're gonna be listening up to 5 minutes of it, I suppose. We're going for about 1.5 hours because I have to do another review after this, but also just so that I stay relatively centered and focused. And I aim to do one of these each week. So hopefully the audio is coming through okay on your end. I've managed to get the mic audio so that it's a bit louder without hopefully being too much or distorting. And also I have managed to get the desktop audio a bit louder as well so that people can hear it, which is nice. So the live stream should in general be a bit louder today, which I'm hoping is okay for people. So if anyone has any sort of like stuff they want to sort of like, any tracks they want to share or anything they want to talk about, happy to do it. I'm happy to chill. Yeah, so there's no, it's just chill. Yeah, so I know for like 2025, I did a lot of those paid live streams. And I realized that with YouTube, if everything becomes paid, then it just comes a bit sad. And I also think that there is an outlet for people to get paid reviews anyways via Fiverr, as well as a Patreon where you can get custom monthly music reviews, plus also an annual album review if you're in the $12 tier, which is an interesting thing that I bring up simply because I get people asking for album reviews. And I know $12 a month isn't cheap, but it's still a lot cheaper than, for example, if you were to, like if you got 12 song reviews plus an album review, it costs a lot more than $144 across a year, even with USD conversion. So, but yeah, we're just doing normal song reviews. We'll do as many as come through. There are going to be, song analysis. I'm still getting the hang of trying to do them succinctly. Because in this kind of environment, I can't really just sit here talking about a track for 15 minutes, primarily because I find that I just kind of ramble as well, which isn't particularly good. We do have a song that's come through from Jacob Wrestle God, though, titled Where Is My Mind by Pixies. So we're going to just start with that. Thanks for your request. And let's do it. It's on Spotify as well. Got some Pixies. Let's do it.
Stop.
Get the lyrics up there. I like how it goes so quiet with the Where Is My Mind parts. Crazy unison bends here. And do everything kind of upside down, I suppose. Kind of spooky how it ends there with that vocal tone, eh? They talk about the ocean and kind of reminds me of a whale song, I suppose, in a certain extent. That was Where Is My Mind by the Pixies, or Pixies. What do we think this track is about? Animals were hiding behind the rock. It said the little fish bump into me, swear he's trying to talk to me, say, wait, wait. There is no special meaning, he wrote it based on a diving trip. Okay. We won't overthink it then. Thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe it's, yeah, being upside down, going on a diving trip, sort of like being outside of yourself within the experience. It's a tasteful guitar riff, eh? Thanks to Jacob Wrestlegod for this request. So what do we, aside of what we think this track is about, if we assume it's almost about someone kind of in their own mind, being a bit introspective, kind of either literally swimming whilst they're doing so or otherwise, the vocals in this oscillate between the quietness of the "Where Is My Mind" part, showing a sense of uncertainty with the situation we're in, with a kind of raunchy, kind of raucous tone with a bit of kind of dustiness there. It's kind of, it's very sort of like rock and roll to a certain extent. It's kind of more conversation than other parts there. There are some melodies in it that work well with the guitar lines that exist within the piece there, and it's never too overwhelming, although I do like those parts where we go up in the frequency spectrum there. They're very kind of mystical sounding. They're almost like there's a higher power involved or something like that. It's just a very kind of soothing, mesmerizing sound that I quite enjoy in the mix, and it's above those guitar leads, even with the higher kind of like bends and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. I think the we follow good vocal technique there, and yeah, and there's like an angst to the vocal performance that kind of elicits a feeling of sort of desperation, trying to find their position. But again, if it's got no special meaning, then it's more sort of performative than anything else, I suppose. You know, it's just their vocal style there, adding a bit of tension to a piece with the grittiness of those guitar layers. The track itself at 3 minutes 49 is quite well fleshed out. It's a song I'm not as familiar with. I feel like the transfers between the various verse and chorus sections are seamless. Those kind of guitar sections, those lead parts there, simmer with the tone of them there. I like that you've got a lead lick on the guitar that's as kind of developed as those. Thanks, Jonah. The exact point you said that, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. I feel actually extraordinarily anxious when I review stuff because I always kind of second guess myself. Thank you, eHost. I appreciate the donation. I'm going to just do that now while I remember. Thanks for the donation. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it, eHost. And I know there's a few more songs in the queue that we've got to go through, which we will do so with. I like the tone of those acoustic guitars in the background and how subtle they are with the 8th and sort of 16th note tone patterns there. It's relatively chilled out because they're not as abrasive or forward in the mix there. It's like they're providing a pad-like aesthetic within the mix. The drums are more forward. They're working with an 8th note pattern across the board. And I think the minimalism there is trying to sort of point you towards being more sort of aware of the vocalist. But there is like some tom fills occasionally there for a bit of variation within transitions of the piece. The way that the fuzziness of those guitars creates this kind of misty ether kind of reminds me a little bit of what could be brain fog or something like that within it. And I think that, again, like iterating upon that that kind of loop you have is very satisfying. That kind of do 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 do. It's kind of even as catchy as the vocal parts in those hook sections. And again, the note choices there with the intervals add a sense of kind of grit with how they would have sounded if they were to be played in use, but arpeggiating them makes them work a bit better within the arrangement. I think it's not too kind of harsh. And that kind of falsetto there is very pure in contrast to the distorted tone of those guitars, which kind of is just a great sort of like in contrast to textures and timbres within the mix. The dynamic range within this is exquisite. I love the way that it's just so full of life and things aren't too squeezed. And it's as much a compositional thing as a production-based thing because of the intensities of how some of those distorted overdriven guitars are played in contrast to, again, the quieter steel string stuff. And like even the bass playing there is relatively like subtle in the mix, keeping a consistent rhythm with the drums there to be supportive and less kind of like outward bound. But yeah, I think the dynamic, the stereo field is explored well because of the instrumental layers there. Thematically, it's almost like calling out with the upper layers of things. You have a sense of purity there that contrasts with the brittle nature of some of the vocal takes there, with how it harmonizes with those guitar clocks, because it's major and minor oriented as well. It's not trying to overcomplicate the harmonies there. I've just kind of visited that solo section as well today because I knew it was a little bit more sort of like developed than I initially ascribed. Adding its own sort of personality to the piece showcases the guitarist's proficiency on the instrument, and working on like a kind of a bluesy kind of phrasing there almost suggests that we're struggling with the fact that we've lost it. A lot of the rest of the track is relatively calm in comparison to that, even when it gets a bit kind of heated with the spice of the guitar effects. But in fact, we've actually got separate guitar leads within that part, which is kind of neat there. They're doing different things, and you don't always get away with that asymmetry within the writing process because it can sort of be a bit distracting. You're kind of, it's almost like we're attributing these different leads to be our minds traveling to different places and not being totally in unison there. And the free-forming nature of it not being too overproduced or overplayed there, a bit of kind of like looseness with some of the rhythmic phrasings in the overdub is just nice. It just makes it sound like if they were playing in the same room and actually played their instruments. And I just love at the end how it just fades out with, again, that vocal layer or those effects there with the reverb tails on it. It's just very sort of like wistful and a nice kind of it makes you think about why it existed in the first place, I suppose, what kind of journey you had with it. The studio recording, mixing and mastering though was really effective. I liked the way that the vocals, the different guitar takes, the bass, the drums, and anything else that was there were leveled within the arrangement there. It was great to be able to hear things clearly, not have any weird resonant frequencies, and the music surround you in headphones with different guitar layers kind of simmering over top there. The dynamic range within the production with things not being too compressed or squeezed was really sort of like positive as well. And it was nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression and limiting was handled, whilst also having a grittiness due to not wanting to over EQ or kind of like sterilize some of the affectation within it. I can totally understand why this would have inspired. This song's inspiration includes Nirvana, Radiohead, etc. While not being a mega hit, it was quite interesting, raised up enough by other bands. Inspiration includes Nirvana. Okay, I remember where it was familiar, the movie Fight Club. There you go. Even David Bowie gave praise to how Pixies created a different alternate rock sound during the era of 80s rock. Yeah, I hear that. I can hear the parallels between the Pixies and like the 90s alt rock. I kind of am reminded of Weezer as well. How much to review one song? So we're not charging for it at the moment. These are free requests. It's just that I'm on a timer as well, though, at the same time, so I can't guarantee I'll get through everyone's choices. But thank you to Jacob for putting that track through, that review of the Pixies. The song titled Where Is My Mind? I enjoyed my time with that. We got Andres as well, which is really cool. Thank you to Paul and Andres for your picks. Just kind of making sure I got everyone's as well. There we go. Nod by Julie. You're welcome. Again, I can't... Yeah, we're just going to continue doing these. So the next track is Paul's request. And I got to remember not to get too close to the microphone because I've got it a bit more kind of gain staged now. I get it's not like $1 million studio tone, but at least it's like... yeah, man. It's all good. Let's do it. The Cure, Drone, No Drone. Paul RX6PR's pick. What do we got? Track number 2 for today. great balancing of the keys in there with the heaviness of that bass tone. I mean, that is a feral bass tone. So heavy and so ruthless. Use the double tracking there. Ooh, that Discord there. Just crazy how the things go through the stereo field as well, man. The panning decisions are fascinating. How they go from left to right with automation. Oh, thank you for the sub. I just realized that a little thing came over my face then. That line, kind of strange to think it takes this long to get misunderstood. I love it. It's a very interesting line. Okay, so that was Drone No Drone by The Cure, which was Paul RXXPR's pick. Thank you for that. This is off of Songs of a Lost World album there, and I'm going to just go back a little bit because I need to remember to do something here. Where is my mind? So just to confirm, where is my mind? Was off of the Death to the Pixies album from the Pixies here with the art up on the screen there. And just a friendly reminder to everyone that the songs that I am adding to this are being added to the Spiderhands fan request playlist here. So if there are any songs, if you're looking to music to listen to, you can check out this playlist. I think the link's in the description. You can just go check out all the music we do there. But that did get added, didn't it? It annoys me that I have to go big with that. But there we go. So we've got Death to the Pixies. And then we had, oh no, hang on. Or Drone No Drone by The Cure. Because I want to go back to that. There we go. And I add that to the, there you go, added to the fan request playlist. Fantastic, good. So what do we think that this song is about? Drone No Drone by The Cure. I think it's someone struggling to find meaning in their own reality and just kind of like struggling to know where to turn. And the fact that at some point they're going to have to go through that dark door and they're going to tumble. And when I talk about a warm gun, are they talking about like a literal gun, kind of questioning whether they want to continue what they're doing anymore? Or is it that whatever decision they make could end up with them ending up with the fate that they may as well be dead? I'm not sure how to describe this one. I feel like it's a very dark song. I mean, clearly. I mean, the vocal style of the vocalist in The Cure is both effervescent at the same time as very loyal to the genre. We listened to this, I mean, it's a bold move, first of all, not having the vocals for like the first like minute of the song. Like usually, you know, you can't always rely on a track being interesting enough to be able to keep the listener's attention for a first minute before it. But there's so many instrumental components that are just really sort of really cool that we're going to get to those in a moment. Just the fact that the vocalist kind of knew to allow himself, everyone else space before he came in for the other things to set the scene, the kind of ground bed for him. It's just polish and it's confidence that I think is well asserted. A really kind of confident vocal performance on display here with really sort of like positive vocal technique and their head and chest voice, very comfortable. They're in the upper range there, which is a great sort of contrast to those lower bass parts. And I just think, again, like he's so well positioned that you hear all the words clearly, and just the extra oomph that you get from the double layering gives him even further presence within the mix without him needing to necessarily do too much to alter his like intensity of his vocal technique. Sometimes he calls out and there's a kind of an angst and a desperation there. And when Paul mentions here the inspiration partly stems from Smith's experience of spotting a drone in his own backyard, which sparked his reflection on self-awareness and uncertainty, that's an interesting line as well. And you get that sense of anxiety from the performance here. It's a very authentic performance on part of the singer. I like that we're able to communicate that without over articulating ourselves and while giving everything else kind of equal standing within the piece, because I feel like all the instruments have room to breathe within this without being dominated too much by the story being told. We have several distinct sections within this where we approach different angles of it, including like an interesting kind of chorus part where we have an additional kind of half to it, which was unexpected both times that it happened. But I kind of like that because it's almost like, oh, there's more of a twist and a tale than what we had already. Are we going to tumble down further than this? I think if this was released in 2024, the production is fascinating. It genuinely is. By the way, Daniel, I'll be able to review it if we have time, but I'm going to try and get through these tracks both properly and as succinctly as I can. Just like having that entire minute of instrumental build-up going into those various verses and choruses was sensible. It's a longer track at 4 minutes 45, but I feel like that time was well spent without any filler. Like that last part, we have that kind of squealing of different elements there, almost like the kind of the chaos of our mind. And how things just kind of, there's a drone afterwards, which is really fantastic there. It kind of like that drone of the thoughts in our mind and kind of like fading away eventually into the ether. And that's guitar feedback, I think, which is just a great sort of additional use of the guitar itself. Aside from being a harmonic or melodic device, it can be used to make literal noises as well. I love the depth, the darkness of that bass tone, though. As I mentioned there, there's like a distortion and grit to it, a fantastic presence within the mix there where it's incredibly assertive, albeit aggressive. It shows that something is weighing us down. It works well within the minors and sort of bluesy scaling phrasings that it has there. And it's just like really kind of scratchiness to it that sounds harsh and brittle, whilst having a nice sort of developed underside as well. The drum kit with the industrial kind of stylings there without a whole lot of low end gives a lot of presence to the bass, while still having a kind of a slap to it that is respectable despite the lack of body in certain areas of it. I like that kind of warble in the way that kind of siren kind of goes between the sides of the stereo field as that noise device, almost sort of Foley-ish there. It's incredibly tense. You kind of get that sequencer there kind of building up from nothing there. It's almost like the thoughts are working into us needing to further articulate it. And you even have some clean guitar parts, which are a phenomenal contrast to those bass parts, because you just don't usually get it. Usually you'd have a cleaner bass tone in a lot of genres of music, and then you might have the kind of harsher guitar tones. It being inverted almost seems like the world is upside down. But the keys, playing some interesting kind of minor oriented stuff there with a sense of tinge of sadness to it, but an interesting kind of glow in the mid-range that kind of is betrayed by how demented it sounds when it rolls up and down the chromatics of its tail. There's an incredible sort of like edge to it there. Like there's a climax we're building to. And the use of those synth sequences that we have and the chorus sections there add a sort of a sci-fi element there that I think makes sense when we discuss what's going on with the drones. Great use of wire guitars is there as well there. Nice to kind of have a filtered effect, almost making it rhythmic there in addition to a mid to upper level ridge there. And we have some sort of vocal chanting as an additional accent or rhythmic device there, and amongst the kind of wahs of the guitar parts there, showing that we've already got enough kind of, again, edge to the bass tones, but then, you know, the guitar lead is that kind of faux alt lead there, albeit still quite subtle in the mix. And it's actually quite developed, the guitar parts. We have several different lead sections, even behind the quite melodic vocal parts with the main and sort of like double tracks. There's a lot of color within this. It's a very interesting mix. It's like a situation where it's not trying to be too kind of, it sounds almost faded, like we're lost within ourselves. A lot of mixes, especially more modern ones in post-2020s, even the 2000s with the loudness war and stuff like that, would have been far more sort of in your face and blunt. But here I think they're trying to go for maybe potential stylings of their earlier work, especially with the production value of it. The minor leaning of this piece thematically insinuates a sense of depression or frustration with what we're coping with, even if we're trying to be introspective and trying to find a solution or meter within it. I think, again, some of the kind of grittiness and distortion of texture and tones elicit that kind of mood or feel as well. Outside of that, trying to be more of a straightforward kind of sort of platform to discuss this on. Ultimately, it's kind of accessible where it needs to be, especially with some of the softer kind of key parts, even if there is a bit of kind of like manipulation of that. It's ultimately just a really quite pleasing kind of chill piece to listen to, despite some of the earlier kind of like implications with, again, the heaviness of some parts. Studio production wise, it's definitely its own kind of beast. I like the way that it's produced. I like that there are some unconventional layers in there that are doing some heavy lifting whilst also kind of flipping expectations on their head. I think that you get a natural kind of almost sort of like sounds like you're listening to it on a radio kind of feeling from this piece, because again, nothing is trying to be too attention grabby. You have plenty of dynamic range with both the automation of volume at the start and the finish of things, as well as just the sub-layering elements of the mix without any sort of weird resonant frequencies. And ultimately, it's just very satisfying because of the polish of the vocal performance, where they can just clearly sing. You know, they've still got their voice. It sounds great after these years. And it's nice and loud without pumping in the truest sense, predominantly because, like, it's a very smooth piece. Even when you have that dramatic tension there going into kind of almost a minor chord that wasn't expected in that last kind of tail of that bit. It's just more like the mix is there to be a constant rather than a boom kind of bouncy one. This definitely isn't a song that you dance to. It's a song where you're kind of in the ether absorbing it with them. Ultimately though, really cool. In fact, I'd say that the constant drone of it, they talk about a drone almost like it's like the drone of the way it was produced without wanting to have too much like production based dynamic range as opposed to compositional ones. But just a really neat piece. Thank you to Paul for sending this through. This track up from The Cure, titled Drone, No Drone. Awesome. Awesome stuff. So I've just got a couple more to add here. Thanks to people's requests so far. It's nice to be reviewing a lot of really cool music today. Thank you. Awesome. Adding these to the mix. Again, this is going for an hour and a half, so we might not be able to get through everyone's, but whoever does get reviewed, we're going to do it properly. And yeah, hopefully, again, we've got Fiverr or Patreon if you desperately need any songs reviewed until before next time. Yeah, thanks for this is Andreas's track here. Track number 3 for today. Hello, Nico. Here. Now, what does that mean? Here we go. What does that mean? It looks like rain. Black. This is from Hello, Nico, the song titled Black. Let's do it. Off of the Plan B album, or EP, should I say. Such a dreamy vocal tone. I love those reverb tails and the delays on those guitar parts. Gorgeous. Is that a synth bass as well doing call and response? Very sort of room tone to those toms as well. fret shift the triplet phrasing there. Charming, dude. Really, really pretty. So that was Luke Andreas's pick for today from an act named Hello Nico, titled Black, if I'm not misunderstanding. I've used DeepL to translate that. I'm not sure what it's about because I'm unfamiliar with the lyrics, with the language, should I say, and I don't have lyrics. The Spotify isn't giving me lyrics. I'm going to comment on everything else. Andreas, if you're able to provide what you think the song's about, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. It's just unprofessional to burp on camera, you know, you know what I mean. I think the vocal performance was tremendous. It was dreamy, wonderfully articulate in a hidden chest voice, very comfortable on the microphone, a very kind of peaceful experience with them. They navigated quite a complicated harmonic arrangement effortlessly. And that kind of breathy performance there is very kind of sleepy sounding, and it works well with a lot of the kind of dreamy guitar and synth takes there. It's a piece where nothing is too aggressive and the expression is paramount. And we have these wonderful kind of like pad-like vocals in the background there that are just such a foundational thing there. They provide this ground bed that niches neatly within the tapestry of the chord progressions, bass lines, and other sort of melodic devices. We have a satisfying return to those chorus parts. And the reason I mentioned that it is satisfying is because you hear quite a few of those choruses, but they never become old or uninteresting. And I think that, you know, despite whatever we do, like, I think part of why this track maintains focus is because of the variety instrumentally in different parts and how sort of like segmented and arranged they are. I think there's like verse, bridges, and choruses, if I'm not mistaken, as well as an interlude later on. It has a fun sort of like mix up with the expectation we've placed on which chords would go in that part. There's like a major twist before we go back down to earth potentially with the minor orient of the chorus with the extended chords. Structurally, absolutely no filler within it though. Besides that, I think that if we were to try and put the song past that point, we might have needed more in the background or some more sub-layers in certain elements, but we don't overstep the boundaries and it's very well thought out and presented. I like the tone of those synths. That kind of like, almost sort of like lo-fi vaporwave-ish kind of tone. It's just so gentle and lush sounding there. It's like you're being wrapped up in a warm, cozy blanket, and I love music like that. And you have these kind of heavy kind of decay tails on the drums there where they're like processed in a way where there's the room sound of them. So they sound like they're being recorded properly, like in an analog format. But it, like, if they'd had too much edge to them, it would have been maybe a little bit too sharp with the approach they were trying to go to with the synth parts. The bass does this interesting kind of call and response for certain parts of the vocals. And I like how that loop is repeated. And something that's very welcome each time because of the way it succulently approaches the notes that are within its range. It's a great kind of like friendly, sophisticated, sort of like coupling with that. And even with the drum kit, when we have those 60-note patterns, a mixture of different hi-hats and toms and stuff like that, we end up not feeling that it is too heavy primarily because of the way it's been produced, but also because a lot of the misty kind of reverb layers within the track. You've got these hypnotic guitar layers with the arpeggiating, the kind of strum, and just kind of like ping pong delays on that as well, which make it seem like we're drifting through space, if I'm honest there. The way that they highlight certain notes within these extended chords and triads, it just it sounds really peaceful, and the kind of chord note accent kind of makes it seem like we're slow walking through it. And I think the way that we kind of modulate those different synth sequences or melodies in that sort of interlude part there to either go between eighths or triplet eighths, and to kind of duck and weave maybe with the realizations we're having about certain parts, is just, it's top notch there. We play with the listener's expectations in a way that's extremely satisfying. And like, even when we have more of those open hi-hats near the end, it's like never too much, simply because of the bus compression that we have across the entire mix from like a mastering perspective. But that we can also have no drums in that part and allow things to float simply makes the most of those kind of ethereal, kind of misty sounding elements. The thematically, the chord choices and the melodies are, I get the feeling that we're trying to communicate that things need to be kind of calm and that we're almost in our own head and sort of in a dream-like state, almost like fantasizing about certain bits or in a state of stasis as we move from one sort of like galaxy to another. But the complexity of those extended harmonies there, as well as some of the twists and turns of the major minors in the interlude section, communicate to me that we're almost undecided about the position we're in, that could potentially be going into either like a bittersweet or melancholic direction. I'm not quite sure, again, because I'm not sure what the song is about, but nonetheless still just incredibly appealing and easy to listen to, simply because it is so gentle and open to interpretation. The studio recording, mixing, and mastering, it's kind of a similar kind of like comment I had on the previous Cure track, where we have a song where nothing is trying to be too aggressive or kind of like stab you in the face. It's a really neat idea to have this occur, because you know, you want to enjoy your time listening through a piece, you know, in this situation. If you'd had like a kind of a gritty kind of flat second or like diminished triads or anything like that harmonically, or if you'd had like another element kind of stab through the mix and be like kind of unpleasant, it just would have been a little bit kind of disparaging or kind of counterintuitive. And again, we have more of that vaporwave kind of stuff in post there. It's more about the way that the instruments sound, the totality of their affectations, and the coziness of the mood, in combination with not trying to sort of veer too much in one direction or another tonally. The studio recording, mixing, and mastering is fantastic. I love how well presented the different elements within the arrangement are. We sit here kind of considering the implications of having that much reverb in a mix, where if it's too floaty, it can just be a little bit too kind of constant. And we don't end up regretting our decision with that front. The vocals are nice and clear in the mix, despite the kind of breathiness of it and the layering of it. You hear all the different synths and pads and sequences and leads and arpeggiators, etc., you know, very clearly when you need to. The drums are a nice sort of constant in terms of the pace of the rhythm. But then at the same time, it's a piece where we just, I think that it doesn't overstay its welcome with the structure and length of it. So ultimately, you know, it fades out, peters out at the end there, and you've just kind of floated through it there. That's due to the kind of the bus compression, the consistency of that dynamically. It's also nice and loud without pumping at all. But yeah, honestly, it's a great balance between the needs to try and make something commercial grade, especially in the mid 2020s. Like, this was released in 2024. Whilst also, I suppose, knowing that if you understand the lyrics, that's going to be the additional icing on the cake. Ultimately, very well produced, no issues with resonant frequencies, music surrounds you in the headphones, and just lovely. So thank you to Luke Andreas for sending through this track for an act named Hello Nico, titled Black. Excellent. Wonderful. What do we have next? What do we have next? We have Blue Dinner Box 1370 here. Request. And I'm just going to make sure. Still alive. Good. Awesome. That's 240 now, so that's going to be too big. There we are. So what does Blue Dinner Box have for us today? Sun Bleached Flies by Ethel Kane. Let's go. Haven't listened to Ethel Kane in a while. Did I put that in here? I did. I didn't. Awesome. let's continue. It's a very long piece, so I'll just listen to 5 minutes of it. You can hear the room sound in the microphone, which is an interesting choice.
Sun bleached light sitting in the window sill, waiting for the day they escape. They talk all about their money and how their babies are always changing while they're breathing in the poison of the pain.
These lyrics are
What I wouldn't give to be in church this Sunday, listening to the choir so heartfelt, all singing, God loves you, but not enough to say.
you can hear them sing together in that one at the church.
Baby girl, good luck taking care of yourself.
Great bluesy phrasing there with no choice chromatic.
Said fine, 'cause that's how my daddy raised me. If they strike once, then you just hit 'em twice as hard. But in the end, if I bend under the weight that they gave me, then this heart would break and fall as twice as far.
Great transition into the drums with the automation of volume here.
We all know how it goes. The more it hurts, the less it shows. But I still feel like they all know.
Great transition vocal range.
That's why I can never go back home. And I spend my life watching it go by from the sidelines. And God, I tried, but I think it's about time I put up a fight. But I don't mind, 'cause that's how my daddy raised me. If they strike once, then you just hit 'em twice as hard.
Great cool
But
response
I
there.
always knew that in the end, no one was coming to save me, so I just prayed. And I keep praying and praying and praying. If it's meant to be, then it will be. So I met him there and told him that I believe. Singing, if it's meant to be, then it will be. I forgive you all as it comes back to me.
You guys are gonna hate me for this, eh? We're up to 5 minutes. I have to pause. The track limit for these requests is 5 minutes, but the fact that, Shippo Lol was getting into it is awesome. Thank you for the request, by the way. I will play it if we have time. Um, but yeah, no, it's a fantastic track. This was Blue Dinner Box's request of Ethel Cain's song Sun Bleached Flies off of the Preacher's Daughter album there, with the art up on the screen there looking very sinister. I should note that I've actually reviewed a few tracks from American Teenager. From Ethel Cain, should I say. Like American Teenager. Blue Dinner Box says Ethel Cain's songs are overall very long for some reason. Yeah, absolutely. They are. I think that with Ethel Cain, they're a competent, talented, and effective musician who can make the most of that real estate. So what do we think it's about? Sun-bleached flies sitting in the windowsill, waiting for the day they escape. They talk all about their money and how the babies are always changing while they're breathing in the poison of the paint. While they're dying, effectively. You know, just sitting there kind of in lethargy. What I wouldn't give to be in church this Sunday listening to the choir so heartfelt. So, is it talking about the perspective of the parents in relation to Ethel here? And how Ethel is, you know, trying to sort of find herself and come across the kind of like they're not allowed to be a part of the group, and she's trying to figure out how to fight for herself so that she can get out of that situation. But I still feel like they all know, and that's why I could never go back home, and I spend my life watching her go by from the sidelines. So basically, they've been sitting there maybe acting like they need to be and sort of breathing in the paint and just kind of passively observing things. But they're now at a stage where they need to sort of come away from that and try and find their own thing. And they've been praying for it, and they try to find someone and find that purpose. But I'm just not sure how to interpret it, primarily because we don't have the end of it. Remember what happened to Ethel Cain? Didn't she get killed? Or did she kill someone? I vaguely remember what happened, and I think she got killed in the end, right? If I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But either way, it's a fantastic track, really well sung. We start in our lower vocal range there, and I think that's a sensible decision because we start at our low point. And we have such a phenomenal amount of body to it that as we start to go up in our range and kind of call out a little bit as we go up in the second half of it, it's kind of like unexpected, and we instantly kind of switch, and it just shows great proficiency on their part. It, you know, clarity and sort of like polish to be able to know just when there's a right point to switch, to be able to make those notes effortless. There are a lot of interesting tails and melodic kind of phrasings and different voicings and passages that added a lot of flavor to these lines outside the diatonic majors and minors that we were rolling with. There were some interesting sort of chromatic kind of like minor orients there and bluesy parts with the vocals. And there were some cooler responses in other parts as well. And it's just really neat. I love it. And it's like a breathy kind of like like honest performance that's not overproduced and just has a great presence regardless of whatever else we're doing alongside of it. And again, structurally at 7 minutes 30, it's a long piece, and I'm not sure how the last third of it goes, but the first 5 minutes of it were scintillating, dude. And it wasn't even that in your face or attention grabby. You simply have the piano at the start playing a very kind of well-rounded kind of like tenable mixture of different majors and minors working with fifths and octaves and triads. It's kind of like a honky-tonky kind of piano tone to it there, with the room sound making it sound very kind of acoustic and organic, which I appreciate there. You can kind of imagine that Ethel Cain is in the room by themselves, kind of singing through it themselves there, which I think is really fantastic. And that's really all we need for that amount of time. You know, I like that we're not overcomplicating the composition, especially in a long form one like this. We've got a long way to go. 7.5 minutes is a long song. Like the additional vocal layers or other parts we have, as well as calling out sections with the dynamic range and everything like that, are intriguing. But a lot of the kind of like interest for me comes from the gradual development and articulation of different parts there. I like that we have verses and choruses, unless this is through composed. We almost have like a phasing on that piano there, maybe just due to the way it was played or the way it sounds or the way it was recorded there, whether it was natural or not. It just kind of makes it seem like we're about to we're about to break as we attempt to hold ourselves up. In fact, there's actually a quiet little organ in the background there, which when we talk about the church, and it was like when they spoke about wanting to sing with everyone else, the backing vocals went around them as well. There's a lot of attention to detail with the minute details that kind of elevates this performance of this composition. When we come in with the full drum kit there, it's well-rounded and balanced, and you get these kind of 8th and 16th note passages at a slower tempo that fill up the frequency spectrum, the stereo field quite well without interrupting or interfering with what the game is trying to do. And there's even some syncopated kind of kick parts there that are kind of a fun sort of groove to it. Sup, Rum Shaker? Welcome to the live stream, dude. And that bass line underneath, that is a bass, right? There is a bass. It's kind of sliding though. And instrumentally, it's relatively minimalist. I think that you do get a big finish. Is that correct, Dinnerbox? Is there a big finish to this? It makes me wonder whether it is. I mean, either way, just we build into that kind of crescendo of wanting more. I want to sort of sing along and praying and trying to find a solution to our inactivity. And I adore it. There's some really heavy subject matter that is discussed here, and I think part of the beauty of this piece is simply listening to Ethel Cain, absorbing their story at face value, and so I think a lot of this track will make more sense in context with the remainder of the subject matter within the record, but it's just a really special piece, dude. Really special piece. And it's just such, again, like having a constant pace almost makes it sort of meditative, like you can get lost within it. It's a quiet ending in the end. Thank you. That makes it even better because it's not predictable, right? A lot of songs, especially in this form factor, will go for a big finish, but not here. Yeah, honestly, just a really sort of stellar piece there that makes the use of its real estate, expands itself slowly, kind of gets you sucked in, and I think it'll grow as it goes. Again, it won't grow here, but like you get the feeling it's got a lot of life to it. Thematically, there. We're thinking with the bluesy phrasings to some of the vocal parts there, you get a feeling they're going through some troubles, but you can listen to the vocals and get the same extent there. The tone of the keys, again, with the room sort of recording and stuff like that, the hum of that and everything is trying not to over polish or sterilize. It makes it seem like it's kind of aesthetically or vibe by as a person in their kind of room, figuring out why they can't go out or why they're stuck there. And I think that, again, when the bass and drums come in, it's just further reinforcement and kind of articulation for the listener, as well as kind of a sense of rhythmic orient to it. Kind of, I just feel like you couldn't have gotten away with 7.5 minutes of this unless there was some other sort of like harmonic and melodic layers in the mids to uppers. So they made the right choice here, as we're very colorful with the vocals on top. And a lot of the hints of the further kind of emotional turmoil are within those tails that we have, which are outside the diatonics. But ultimately, just it's like it's accessible without being sort of compositionally too complicated. But yeah, the studio recording, mixing, and mastering is effective as well. I like the fact that it's got that room tone in it. It sounds like a proper recording there. I think if you put like a digital piano or something like that and made it too clean sounding, it would have sounded less earthy and a bit more sort of quote unquote real. I know that's kind of the most basic bitch kind of way of describing that. It's just, you kind of want to imagine being in the world that they're describing there, and it makes it more believable, and everything is well connected. The piano parts, the organs, the keys, and the drums are relatively subtle in approach. Like even the drums, I think, come up with a steady kind of like meter. When they are, the stereo field blooms, and you know the vocals surrounding the headphones, you do have stuff to appreciate around the sides of it. It's not like it's lacking, but there's dynamic range to the piece. It's not too over compressed. It's nice and low with that pump, with the bus compression limiting is handled. In Ethel Cain, whether it's the main or the sides, can just clearly sing. They don't need any help in both. They're a wonderful vocalist and incredibly expressive. And I just feel like this is a masterstroke. I don't know if it's my favorite track from today. I did like No Drone as well as Black, but I still think this is an incredibly strong track, and I just feel like the strength of this album again is listening through it from start to finish. So thank you to Lou Dinnerbox for that. Really great imagery as well with the sun-bleached flies. Like almost like we're just kind of insects with our lives just, you know, a sand in the desert, right? Wonderful. Microscopic in the grand scheme of things chronologically. But yeah, what do we got next? After that wonderful track, we have got a song from Jonah Harmorski 55090. Thank you for your request. Knob by Julie. Let's do it. Yay, we found it. Let's go. It's kind of another sadder kind of piece, isn't it? Oh, that tension, man.
Give it away like 2 stones to all your birds and I've got a while till I show up and burn. Needing a way to give in, leaning to take your turn. All apart from you, I took too long, and you gave it away. Couldn't start from here, you pleading away. It just makes you lose all the crows showing.
Interesting cadence.
Teeth that leave you be. Couldn't make it out of me.
Ooh, that was a heel turn. Well done. What a filthy guitar tone, dude. What a filthy tone, dude. Sludge.
Alone in the fields, sharing everything I feel. Could never admit your arms are wide instead, close to make you itch. Winds to push and lift.
Wonderful, dude.
All apart from you, I took too long, and you gave it away. Could start from here, you pleaded away. It just makes you lose all the crows showing teeth that leave you be. Couldn't make it out of me.
I can tell someone's actually playing their drum kit as well.
Alone in the fields, sharing everything I feel. Could never admit your arms are wide instead, close to make you itch. Give it away like 2 stars to all your birds and I've got a while till I show up and burn.
And all the way back down with that dynamic range. Tremendous. Really wonderful piece there, eh? So that was Knob by Julie off of the My Anti-Aircraft friend with the album art on the screen, released in 2024. I adore it. It's one of the most unique pieces of music I've heard recently. Genuinely. I agree. I think the guitar is perfect. It's such a unique, distorted tone. Like, the reason I said sludge is because it reminds me of sort of sludge metal there, but it's like, it's incredibly grunge. It's like an evolution of grunge, I suppose, there, where we're really kind of making the guitar less of a kind of gritty accompaniment and just making it the art. It's really neat. Really neat. So what do we think this track is about? Give it away like 2 stones to all your birds, and I've got a while till I show up and burn. Needing a way to give in, lean in to take your turn. I don't know, is this about like some sort of all your birds? Is it about someone trying to sort of like solve problems and giving in? Or like they know they're gonna burn out or something like that? You played in the way it just makes you lose. All the crows showing teeth they leave you be couldn't make it out as me. So maybe we thought that we were going to do something for this person, but then the crows, you know, marking for death, they knew that the victim wasn't meant to be the victim. They were the wrong victim of something like that. They plead in the way that makes you lose. Is it sort of saying that this person is pleading for something in a way where they lose out on it because they don't know how much they have and really we're the problem? I don't know how to describe it. Alone in the field, sharing everything I feel, could never admit arms are wide and stiff, clothes to make you itch, give it away. Like, yeah, interesting, clothes to make you itch. Yeah, what do you think it's about, Jonah? I'm not sure. I'd need more time with it. Knob by Julie. Because like knob is a literal thing you turn. Clearly you guys know what a knob is. Or a knob is also another, it's like an insult calling someone a knob. So I'm not sure how to interpret the meaning of knob itself. It's got different meanings. The vocals have this kind of disdain to them, this kind of quiet disdain and meter to them and approach where we sound so tired with what we're having to struggle through. And I adore it because it's such a great constant, regardless of whether we have those ferocious, distorted tones with the fuzz, or if we have like the relative quietness of some of those kind of guitar layers. And for most of the song, we just have guitar and vocals here. We are very comfortable in our range there. We hit the notes cleanly. We've got a great sort of like quality and sort of texture to our voice there where it's not only present but pleasant to listen to. And I just feel like if we tried to be too raunchy with the vocals, like put a lot of fry in it or something like that, it might have also been too much, especially considering the guitar tone that we had. And the guitars are so kind of cautious with how quiet they are as well within the accompaniment, you know, but I kind of adore that because what it's basically saying is we're trying to figure out how to meter ourselves before we talk about, again, the crows with the teeth and everything like that. There's a quietness before the dramatic occurrence is about to begin. I think when we do come into that instrumental break there with like the heavily sort of fuzzy guitars and stuff like that, it's like we've had the story and we're more sort of dealing with the consequences of the situation that we're in. And I love the tense chords that we use within those. They were not just rolling with like some sort of majors and minors. Some of the dissonance with distortion can come from trying to use major or minor chords because they're abrasive because of the complexity of the triads. There's too many notes that can rub each other up the long way. But when we deliberately use kind of flat seconds or uncomfortable chords with that, it makes sense resolutely because of the atmosphere we're trying to set up. Because there's relatively pleasant chords that have been played on guitar for quite a while of it. Even when the drums come in, they're playing very sort of like 8th and 16th parts, even when there's a groove established in that second half there. And the bass is typically being very supportive of the notes on the guitar. They're not trying to overcomplicate the main sort of theme. And there's like more oomph actually behind the bass in those chorus sections. So even the bass is exhibiting dynamic range here, which isn't always a constant. It's not like a skill thing. It's more of a, basses are usually quite compressed simply to not have as much sort of like difference between the quiet and loud notes within a piece. So for them to be a bit quieter almost makes it seem like a live performance. I think there's even some sort of chromatic notes within those chord progressions as well there. So we have the storyteller being full bore kind of regardless, like the focal point in a lot of it. And then we simply have an instrumental break occasionally to sort of show the kind of viciousness of the situation and maybe elicit less of a calmness than what we might be described simply if we listen to the sound of the vocals rather than what they're saying. And then we have that final kind of hiss and burn at the end there to sort of fade us out, almost like we're kind of accepting the depression of the situation there. It's a really fascinating piece. I like that it doesn't commit too much to the bit of trying to be too ferocious or too quiet. Like there's equilibrium across the board through the differences in intensity or loudness of it even. I think Rump Shaker 96 mentioned being jump scared, and that was the same for me too. But I think that music needs to affect you like that. It needs to kind of stick you a little bit for you to care about it. I think in this day and age where we're so oversaturated a lot of time by music, with a lot of it trying to be very attention grabby, it is refreshing to have a song that just genuinely does that, perhaps without even necessarily trying too hard to, but just having a relative quietness that is befuddled by that sudden push of force. And there's actually kind of, as a closing note on the actual sort of like composition itself, there's an inherent sweetness with when the vocals have the guitar behind that kind of distorted guitar there. It's like we still manage somehow to make room for them as both a production and compositional perspective there. Like we're allowing the chords to be a bit complicated in those parts and to kind of seethe and simmer a little bit. But even when the vocals are relatively quiet in terms of their expression, it's like, I don't know how they find that gap. I think part of it is that we double track the rhythm guitars to squeeze them on the sides of the stereo field to make room for the left, and we're not trying to add too many sort of like sub layers in the middle, with the bass being in the middle, of course, and some of the drum parts, but just, I think the organic nature of the drum performance as well is wonderful. And the reason I say that is simply because we have a piece here where it's just, if we'd quantized this piece and tried to make the drums perfectly in time all the time, it would have sounded a little bit robotic. It kind of sounds like when we have an occasional change of tempo or something like that, we're stumbling over ourselves. And it works well, I think, with the visceral tone of the guitars as well. Whether we're playing sort of cymbal patterns or kick and snares, eighths or sixteenths, you know, like we balance things well. And I think the rides patterns, they remind me a lot of 90s grunge, but there's just something even that's just as raw about this, but there's like a cleaner production to some of the vocal parts and stuff as well, which is just an interesting, we have even more contrast between the grittier elements and the cleaner vocals. But yeah, generally just, you know, thematically minor oriented, more of the kind of duality of it is sort of communicated by the quieter and louder guitar parts. So a lot of that mood and is communicated there. We have these kind of very sort of well-behaved friendly chords on the clean guitars that are mirrored with the extra kind of harshness of distortion and stuff later on. And there's two very different sides to the story at that point. Ultimately, I think the vocals are a supportive narrative decision there that I think allows you to enter their world without sort of feeling like you're overstaying your welcome. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering. Again, I like that we didn't over-polish the performance of it, nor the recording itself. The vocals nice and present with adequate EQing and compression there, a constant with the light loudness within the mix there, despite the quietness. The multiple guitar takes, the rhythm and kind of like sort of parts, as well as the bass and the drums are well metered within it, with bus compression on the drums for a bit of room sound. Dynamic range for sure there from like a compositional perspective. I don't blame it for being your favorite album of 2024. It seems like a really cool album. Thank you for sharing this, by the way. I don't think I've listened to Julie before. Definitely going to add this to the mix. There you go. Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful music and nice and loud without well, it's a bit of pumping there because of the kicks and stuff like that, but we're not trying to make a EDM track by any means, you know, we're just trying to sort of make a piece there where I think it's trying to sort of like have life to it. It's trying to sort of mirror the expression of their emotions, the ups and downs and stuff like that in a way which is how do I describe it? Just believable. Emotions, they rise and fall, you know. If you squeeze it too much, it can seem like everything's the same. And I think this is a type of production decision that works well with this style, especially when the composition isn't as busy, you know. But thank you to Jonah Hamorski, 55090 for putting this track through from an act named Julie titled Knob. I think we have time for one more track, if I'm not mistaken, as we're going for an hour and a half today. We'll see how we go. Let's do it. Can you please review? I'm not sure what that is, though. I don't know what that is. So we'll put it in here. We'll go to depow. Ah. Oh, crazy. So can you please review Love Story Comes Suddenly by Kazumasa Oda? Sounds good. Let's do it. This is this track here. Whoa, very pretty. It absolutely is funky for sure. Crazy hand drums there as well. I love the multiple percussion types though. So groovy, dude. Great octave work on the bass as well. Smooth transition back into the hook here, man. Oh, look at one of those crashes there. It's kind of a shame when you get the guitars fading out with a really slick lead solo, but at the same time you kind of get it because like where's the clean resolution of that? You know? How do they end after that? When was this released, by the way? Because we're going to add that to the playlist. Man, what track is this? 4? Can you like add to the playlist? Why are you being all weird? Bro, go to this. What's happening? Is it okay? There we go. Cool. Awesome. And we're back here. Excellent. So that was Kazumasa Oda with Love Story Comes Suddenly. So that was a pretty groovy song, pretty funky. What do we think this track is about? I mean, I'm not familiar with Japanese enough to be able to sort of understand what it's about. But if I talk about Love Story Comes Suddenly, I'm wondering if that's more referring to the fact that love, it sneaks up on you, effectively, you know? If that's the case, Daniel, if you could please help me help me out, that'd be fantastic, thanks. But either way, very pleasant track to listen to. The vocal style that they have is fragrant and effervescent. There's a kind of a breathy, kind of really kind of pretty glow to their voice there. That's got a great presence in the mix because of the frequency, part of the frequency spectrum, and they're like their octave. But it's also because of the compression and gluing of things within the production, the studio side of things, which we'll talk about as we go forward. We don't just have our main vocals. We're happy to sort of like layer them and have like parts on the side as well, which is really cool. I like that we don't take for granted the listener's attention, and that we explore the stereo field and we allow parts to go on the side as well and create a sort of like wonderful kind of chorus choir effect there. And it's not an all the time either. We don't just have like one or the other all the time. We switch it up and have different sort of like intensities of various parts. And when we need to be the storyteller, we are that. We need a bit more oomph, we can do that too. But I think a lot of the magic of this track is actually, you know, outside of the vocal technique and the way we sort of express ourselves within the mix, is the actual composition itself. I mean, at 4 minutes 57, it's outside the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, but not in the way that I feel is a negative thing. It's really well fleshed out and there's a lot to appreciate within it. We don't overstay our welcome on any specific theme there. I mean, if we go right back to the start, we have the like really like quickly sort of like alternate strummed kind of like single coil guitar tone there with the bar chords there. Again, an inherent funky thing, eliciting a sense of, okay, I kind of know what we're getting into here. But then we've got that quarter tone kind of groove to the drum patterns. And then we've got those kind of offbeat, kind of syncopated guitar chords coming through with that kind of synth there with the portamento. It's just a gorgeous sounding sound there. It's bright and pretty, and it's kind of a very happy sounding thing, you know, despite the complexity, the emotional complexity of some of those extended harmonies you have in the mix. the bass underneath, sort of rolling with like the octaves or the root notes of the chords most of the time, but then occasionally working with octaves as well. I like the fact that we kind of bounce between those. We have like a great sense of like precision with the rhythmic kind of like phrasing of the bass as well there, working with a 16-note pattern across the kind of the hi-hat patterns of the drums there outside of the quarter note grooves on the kit. And again, we have brass as well for accents and like occasional bits of ear candy there, reinforcing certain elements to make them standing out or being a cooler response to what's going on with the vocals. And we have the hand drums as well, as I mentioned as well, which are really neat. They're just for like an alternative kind of percussive layer that adds a bit more kind of oomph in that range there and little sort of like sub rhythms without changing the meter or sort of polyrhythming it enough. It's just a bit of extra. It's making the track sound huge without needing to sort of shove anything to the forefront there. It's niching things within an inch of their life so that they're able to sort of like have presence be very sort of effective. There's wonderful sort of like harmonies there. The interval choices that we use with the overdubbed kind of like vocals there are tremendous, and they're pretty and they work well in a similar range to a lot of those other elements within the mix. Where the resolution with the chord progression that kind of goes up within their range for a bit of tension and then back down to resolve. It's like this really sort of like really pleasing feedback loop. And you have these kind of flicky keys and other sort of like upper octave kind of passages there melodically that work well alongside the strings. Yeah, we have strings and pads there as well there. There's all these little fun layers that build a piece up and make it more and more special. And I adore that because of the attention to detail, but also because I figure that these would have all been played by like a live band, and to be able to get everyone to play this effectively is testament to both the proficiency of the instrumentalists involved, as well as the vision of Kazumasa Oda back in 1994 with this album. And again, it's that we have this kind of free-flowing sort of like aesthetic to it where like not everything's perfectly in time, but if things kind of go slightly after it appears deliberate there. You know, like the stars are shining around you, though. It's got something inherently sort of magic, almost sort of like discotheque about it. I think the guitar solo that I wanted to talk about, especially with it fading out at the end there, was a kind of a nice kind of neo-jazzy kind of sort of like system to it that explores the range it's in well, very sort of like present and sort of like easy to listen to in addition to everything else, even as a sublead or a lead. Just having it kind of fade out was getting more kind of mesmerizing as it picked up the pace and sort of stretched his legs a little bit. It was almost like we were going towards something else afterwards that was going to like sort of elevate us. Like we were kind of heading towards something greater than the love that would come across. So maybe we were accepting the love that we'd found and we were kind of rising with it. Again, like, and we don't just switch with the normal time meter as well. We go to half times and we sort of change the pattern and phrasing of things to make it more intriguing. If you're constantly normal time or going double time, the listener can get used to it. If you bring it down a little bit, it kind of makes it seem like you want to have a more sort of sincere conversation with the listener here. Like we're really trying to take our time expressing ourselves. And for the fact that the band to be so tight with their performance, to be able to sort of like allow for that to happen is just, it's really positive. And there's little things like the offbeat kind of, the chord note, which is just a really sort of technical, sort of like rhythmic guitar performance. It's really sort of like well played as well. So instrumentally, this is just a really wonderful song. It explores a lot of the possibilities of different instruments in a way where they never overplay, but I sort of like their personas within this are very supportive of the vocals, whilst doing enough to be sort of impressive on their own. The use of the different bar chords on the guitars, as well as the coloration of the keys, the strings, the brass, any other elements within this add a lot of sort of flavor and zest to a piece that would otherwise be quite naked. I think that's simultaneously the combination of Kazumasa Oda's vocals with the storytelling they have, as well as the mood state and the way they harmonize with the complex arrangement, with the tightness of the rest of the element that really sort of makes it kind of ascendant or transcendent. And then sort of like thematically, it's more about trying to create an environment where you're kind of in the middle of the night, kind of dancing along to it and getting lost with each other. It's hypnotic, it's mesmerizing, and it's just pleasant. And even as someone who doesn't understand the language, I can listen to this and go, yeah, no, I'm having a really great time with it. So ultimately, I think I'm gonna get off after this and give my voice a bit of a break. Cause I'm doing 1.5 hour live streams at the moment before I get back into 2s later on. But this is a great track to end on. Studio production wise, it's commercial grade in terms of its approach, the recording quality of the vocals, as well as various other instruments within the mix, the countless other layers. There are a huge band behind them, nicely spread out amongst the stereo field. Music surrounds you in the headphones. There's no resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum. You know, it's nice and clean sounding. Even the bass, which you know has a bit of edge to it, it's not too much there. You can hear things clearly if you pay attention to them. Sounds wonderful in these headphones, which are famously kind of anal about that kind of stuff. There's dynamic range to it to a certain extent, but it's more of an instrumental thing rather than a production thing, which makes sense considering this is effectively a dance track. And it's nice and loud with that pumping, well, a little bit of pumping with the side chaining bits of the bus compression, limiting is handled, but it's not like a dance track or anything like that. It's like it's a smooth listening experience with lots of little intricacies that you can appreciate on multiple listens. And just a really it's a really fantastic track. So thank you to Daniel, VKCUC, X6UC, for putting this track through. It's awesome. Awesome. Awesome piece, man. Awesome piece. So basically that's us for today. We have checked out a few tracks today. We checked out tracks from Jacob, Wrestle God, Paul, X6PR, Luke Andreas, Blue Dinner Box, Jonah Hamorski, 5090, as well as Daniel VK6UAC. Again, I'm trying to still kind of get into the handle of trying not to be I've explained things too much, but I nonetheless have enjoyed my time listening through these tracks today. I feel like I did all 6 of the tracks okay, if not well. Thank you to all of you for coming along to this live stream. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic weekend. I will be back next week at the same time. And I think we're probably just going to have to try and do 2-hour live streams because there's quite a few tracks to get to, and I want to make it sort of worthwhile to people to come along. Without sacrificing the quality of the reviews, as I've been receiving feedback recently that when I do the song analysis in full, it's appreciated. So we'll continue to do that. Yeah. I remember if you want to, you know, if you're not subscribed, maybe subscribe so that you know when the live streams are on. If you want songs reviewed, if you want to check out the Discord as well, we can talk on Discord. Links in the description for that, especially because I put the schedules on Discord. Usually the day or 2 before, just so that people know in advance and people get told on Discord if the live streams are going to occur. And then also, finally, if you want like custom monthly music reviews as well as an album review annually, you can choose to join the Patreon at the $12 tier. But thank you for coming along to this Fan Request live stream. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you have a favorite track. My favorite track for today was probably the Ethel Kane one. No, it was probably the Knob by Julie track. I really enjoyed my time with that one. Stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you at the next live stream. Spiderhands out. 3, 2,